We ain't gonna have time to come raw. I think I got like 3 weeks.
They want to build it off.
4 weeks. Build it behind. Well, push it might be 5 weeks. That's two. That's two. And that's 2 4 weeks. Have to change the set.
Well, the septic tanks behind it. I mean, to the right, but see, I don't know that until it goes back there and puts that. So he said, look, he had never paid, they've never paid me to go out there, so we need to. Right, because I think the leach fields run out in the dry field is what he told us, didn't he? Table it, if this don't cost $250,000. We could do it from the facility standpoint.
How you doing, Mr. Grady? Good, how are you?
All right.
So don't panic when you open it up.
Good. Same, about the same last one. Here. Go to.
No, and see, that's the like thing about it, that they don't have any details of what service they perform. Are they something?
He's looking well, I can purchase it. I like you do it.
If that's the case, after the two's out, we're gonna have to move. We're gonna have to move the.
I thought it was the legislature,
So there's gotta be a vote of the full board. That's what it says.
Doesn't, I'm gonna look at it, I'm gonna look at it and see.
Which we call
other elements, said it was these, all three.
Yeah, we will. So add it in there.
Got enough to vote.
Pretty state.
Glad you called. I didn't see that.
I mean, we can still do it, we can still do
I'm ready.
I'd like to call the Blaine County Schools Monday, January 8th, 2024 regular school board meeting to order. I'd like to thank all of you for being here. We appreciate what you do. We especially appreciate you being here to support our students this evening. And at this time, we'll call Dr. Atkinson to give our invocation.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you now. We thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to gather here tonight as a school board, as we make decisions, Lord, for the betterment of the children in Blaine County. We just thank you for your hand of protection upon our students and our staff and families during this time. We ask for your continued hand of blessing in the days ahead. We'll always be careful to give you the praise and the honor and glory for all things that are accomplished. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Chair, at this time, we have students from Bladen Lakes Primary do the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Ricky Alvarado, Bentley Bullock, Jesus Delgado Hernandez, Sherilyn Delgado Hernandez, Kaylin Newth, and Leo Alvarado.
Salute and pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You ready to go? Get this to the.
In the corner. Okay, we'll move on to number 4, adoption of the agenda. Dr. Atkinson, we'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Chairman, Bentley, board members. I would like to request the board to approve an amended agenda tonight with the following changes. Under consent agenda 5.02, UNC Health Agreement for School-Based Services, recommend moving that to information item 9.02. For wide area network renewal, federal E-rate program. We still have a couple of things that did not come in on time for that, so we request to move that to the February board meeting. And then action item 10.02, North Carolina School Boards Association Legislative Committee Service. We're going to ask you to approve an amendment agenda that moves that item to February. It does require, thank you, Mr. Locklear, for seeing that. It does require the full board to take action on that particular item, because it will be representative for the board on the legislative committee. So I'm requesting the board to approve the agenda as amended with those changes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved properly seconded. And we make the changes that Dr. Atkinson just mentioned. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Here's none, motion carries. That would need a motion to adopt agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved proper seconded, we adopt tonight's agenda. Is there any discussion? Right. If there is none, all those in favor of adopting tonight's agenda, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed likewise. There's no opposition, motion carries. Adopt the new agenda as amended. And now we move on to number 5, entertain a motion that, to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Been moved and proper seconded that we approve, tonight's consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If there's none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. All opposed likewise. That motion carries to approve tonight's, consent agenda. This was on to number 6, spotlights of recognition. Dr. Atkinson, turn that over to you.
Thank you, Chairman and board members. This time we have several students that we would like to recognize as well as one of our faculty members. We're privileged tonight to have students represented from Bladenboro Middle School, Elizabethtown Middle School, and East Bladen. Assisting us tonight with calling the names is Coach Patty Evers, our County Athletic Director. We're going to begin first with recognizing the Bladenboro Middle School girls soccer team.
Bladenboro Middle School girls soccer team had an undefeated season, and they were the Waccamaw Conference champions. And we'll recognize those players. Victoria by the Gavon. Donna Brown. Addison Carroll. Sabria Cobb. Lori Covington. Trinity Dutcher. Kylie Davenport. Hadley Dove. Venus Garcia. Allison Hickman. Macy Kinlaw. Amaya McCarty Maxfield. Brooklyn McKee. Haley McLaurin. Elizabeth Miller. Kristen Singletary. Chloe Walters. Addison Wilcox. And coaches Allison Carroll and Coach Mike Dove. Please give them a round of applause.
And, no. Thank y'all so much. All right, let's make sure to see everybody. There we go. All right. Yep, okay, got it. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Big smile. Thank you.
Next, we have the Elizabethtown Middle School boys soccer team.
Elizabethtown Middle School boys soccer team claimed the Waccamaw 2A conference championship this year. Players are Ishaq Algozi, Malachi Bazell, Mel Carter, Jaden Lewis, Damian Maynard, Andrea Nunez, David Sanchez, Aiden Smith, Jason Sutton, Lenny Tatum, Miguel Valadez, Freddie Valerio, Tamara Wall, Johnny Wilson, and Coach Larry Williams. Please give them a round of applause.
All right, 1, 2.
Good.
At this time, we have the Bladenboro Middle School girls volleyball team.
This year, Blainboro Middle School girls volleyball team, Blaine County Conference Championships. Those players are Haley Andrews, Addison Carroll, Alejandra Clemente, Amelia Cummings, Venus Cortez Garcia, Kylie Davenport, Hadley Doug, Imani Graham, Wandra Gutierrez, Allison Hickman, Ella Johansson, Macy Kinlock, Amaya McCarty Maxfield, Katie McLaurin, Elizabeth Miller, Abby Nance, Kelly Nobler, Jordan Howard, Kristen Singletary, Chloe Walter, Addison Wilcox, and coaches Allison Carroll, Coach Rebecca Harvey, Coach Jeff Burns, and Coach Michelle Soul. Please give them a round. Taking off a lot for me.
Graphic design. All right, next under our spotlights, we have athletes from East Bladen High School with various sports. So we'll recognize those students this time.
First, we have Lee Panther, who is the women's tennis 1A Waccamaw Conference Singles Tournament champion and was a women's tennis regional participant. Please give her a hand.
They will do a guard.
Tamara Bordeaux, she was a women's tennis regional participant. And Megan Kirby, East Lake High School women's tennis coach.
Work out.
Sorry.
Next, we have the cross-country regional participants from East Lake High School, Jacob Kohler, Saber McLean, Jemiah Peterson, and Coach Wilson Bowden, a regional participant.
Congratulations, you've won.
Next, we have Rodney Lacewell. He participated in the North Carolina Coaches Association East-West All-Star Games. Our next spotlight from East Lake High School participated in the North Carolina, South Carolina Shrine Bowl game for football, Mason Brooks. This year, East Lake Boys Soccer's Co-Waccamaw Conference Player of the Year is Jamie Delgado.
And this time we have one more. I'd like to recognize Coach Patty Evers, who has been selected as the Vice President of the North Carolina Coaches Association. Chairman Benton and board members, that concludes our spotlights and recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Atkinson, for that, for everyone who came out. We'll move on to number 7, citizen participation, if we have any.
There is none tonight.
There is none. We'll move on to number 8, special resolution, and we'll go back to you again, Dr. Atkinson.
Thank you, Chairman Benton and board members. At this time, I would like to share a resolution on behalf of School Board Appreciation Month. This resolution states, whereas public schools are an essential element of our democratic society, and whereas these are challenging times for public education and the work of school board members, and whereas serving on the Bladen County Board of Education requires an unselfish devotion of time and service to carry on the mission and business of the school district, and whereas school boards are accountable to communities for setting clear standards for student performance and assessing if those standards are met, And whereas school boards are responsible for establishing systems in which every student can learn and achieve at the highest level possible. And whereas school boards must meet the educational needs of students with fewer and fewer resources. And whereas school boards work diligently to assure young people are educated and prepared for their future in the workplace and as citizens. And whereas the men and women elected to these positions deserve recognition and thanks for their countless hours of volunteer service to public education and the children of our community. Now, therefore, we hereby declare our appreciation to the members of the Bladen County Board of Education and proclaim January School Board Appreciation Month. I urge everyone to join me in recognizing the dedication and hard work of our school board members to create an education system that meets the needs of both today's and tomorrow's children. In official recognition whereof, I hereby fix my signature this 8th day of January 2024. Jason Atkinson, Superintendent, Bladen County Schools. Let's join in giving our board member a round of applause. Come forward. We have some gifts and things that have been made by our students. So as you all leave tonight, you have a box of goodies to take with you. So make sure you see Ms. Johnson on your way out. First, we have Mr. Tim Benton, board chair. All right. Mr. Glenn McCoy, board vice chair, is not able to do this tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Chris Clark, that would be with us tonight. He has joined us virtually, and Mr. McCoy. Harfield Davis. Mr. Dennis Edwards. Mr. Steve Kwiatkowski. Mr. Keith Locklear. Mr. Gary Rhoda is not able to be with us this evening. Mr. Maggie Singletary. We'd also like to recognize Mr. Gary Grady, our board attorney. Sunday student. Let's get a picture of everybody. And again, on behalf of the staff, students, and families of Bladen County Schools, we do thank you all for your commitment to our students and for your support each and every day. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins, for that. Board members, thank you for what you do. It's not always an easy job. We appreciate the time and effort that y'all put into it. Go to number 9, information items. 9.01, Tar Heel School construction update, and Mr. Burris. That will be, next night Mr. Burris is unable to attend. We welcome
a wonderful group of students into the new building today. It was an exciting day. Everything went very smooth. In fact, we started very early this morning. WECT came and did some live shots this morning early. And I had a chance to do a brief interview with them today as well. But lots of excitement there. I think that it's a building that the community and families and all are very excited about. And things are working well. We'll begin phase 2, which starts with the demolition of the old school. The asbestos abatement has been completed. And so anytime, probably sometime later this week, they will begin the demolition. It will start on the end of the building where the gym is located and going back to the wood line. So once that is done and cleaned up, they'll begin construction of the parking areas, the landscaping, signage out front. But everything is progressing well. And so far, everything is on budget as it should be. So definitely a good thing. Mr. Burris will have a much more detailed report for you all once we can reconcile and close out things on the actual building. What's left as we go into the demolition.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Atkinson, and it is indeed a nice facility that we are and should be proud of. Okay. Time we'll move to 9.02, which UNC Health Agreement. We'll turn that over to you, Dr. Atkinson.
Thank you, Chairman Benton and board members. This was an item that we did move to information for tonight. This is a result of the grant program that we had shared a few months back with UNC. I just want to kind of go through this a little bit to give some clarity to the MOU. And of course, we'll get the opportunity for any questions or clarifications that the board would like that I could take back to them, and then we can come back next month if the board would like to move forward with this. But the school-based agreement, and Mr. Grady, our attorney, has reviewed some specifics in here. As a reminder, the grant program was to provide first and foremost access to mental health services for students, whether that be telehealth with psychiatry or therapy with a licensed psychologist or clinical social worker. This was a grant that was funded through the Duke Endowment, and it is a 3-year grant, and there's no cost to the school system for this. What the school-based services agreement in a nutshell does is establish a relationship with UNC Health. Obviously, they have several satellite campuses that are in North Carolina, like Lumberton Southeastern Regional is one of the newer hospitals and clinics that have come on board with the UNC health system. As we're going through this process and we were doing some of the groundwork as related to the grant, we were very upfront at the beginning that as with anything, we know that we have had the Parents' Bill of Rights that's been recently instituted, but all along we've always wanted parental consent before any kind of services of this nature would have been done. Really, it boils down to giving access to services locally here in Bladen that would not otherwise be accessible, maybe because of time or maybe distance. Right now, typically for mental health services, when folks are trying to see providers, they've been sharing, and others have shared even outside of this, that it's sometimes 3 to 4 months before they can get access to that. The second part of that is a referral process. So, for instance, parents can do a self-referral on their own. The school could consider referral, but with parental consent, it wouldn't go any beyond that. Or if the family physician that's a local provider would like them to see a provider in UNC's network, this would provide that gateway for them to do that. Either the psychiatry or specialties would primarily be through telehealth. They would just have a space in the building to do that. And that's part of the agreement that we would provide a space and access to the internet. But the goal would be obviously to provide access for those services through this program. Now, I know all anytime you have any agreements and that there's always questions or concerns that may arise. We've made it very clear where Bladen County Schools stands as it relates to the law and what the law has specified with us as it relates to the instruction of students. and, our responsibilities as a school system and as a board, as it relates to obviously adhering to North Carolina law. I think it is a lot of, what we'll say sometimes 2,000 buses. But one thing we want to try to do tonight after talking through this a little bit, and looking at some various aspects, is to ask the board if there's any specific questions of clarification that we would like to put to UNC Health, or any questions at all about the grant process itself, and its intent. And then what we'd like to do is be able to take that back to address those questions, and possibly see if we could arrange for, if it had to be virtual, for one of the project leads to be available at the next meeting, but also answer any questions. But to give the board ample time to review this, consider this, and to move forward. Again, there's no financial responsibility on behalf of the school system. It's all covered with funding. But if anyone has any questions this time, I'd be happy to take those down and relay those. But I will also work with them to make arrangements to have a representative available at our next meeting to address questions as well prior to the board taking any vote or action on that. So just feel a little more comfortable doing that. I know we're kind of in the grant process. We're about halfway of the first year. But one thing that we want to make sure is that we've done our due diligence on everything, and kind of thinking through some things, and also with questions that have come up, we want to make sure that no member of the board does not have a question that's not answered. So we've got full clarity on this. And again, this is kind of the first of its kind of this type of program. The goal will be hopefully is to have some kind of model for other districts moving forward. So Bladen was selected about two, 3 years ago when it kind of first started the early process. We have had concerns, and it has been difficult with the availability of some of these services for families, and families share that we might try to get with someone. It might take 3-4 months before we can be seen. As close as even Fayetteville and Wilmington, we do not have a lot of specialty folks in, especially on the psychiatry or even the specialist area. It could be audiology, it could be podiatry, it could be any field where a student may need, parents say, my child's got an issue with their foot. I mean, we say that they could navigate that network to get them in with that particular provider. This will be actually the grant pays, although on the mental health side, the grant pays 100% of costs. It's not paid for by any insurance. So if it's not covered by Medicaid or private insurance, the grant funds, so there's zero cost to families that would take advantage of this. Again, the biggest thing I think, the biggest takeaway is that there would be no conversation, no interaction, no seeing students or anything at all without first obtaining parental consent. It's obviously the way to be done. And also parents have the opportunity to also attend those telehealth sessions with the student, either on campus with them physically, or if it's their job and have to jump on their computer, but they would have access to do that as well. Yes, sir.
My question is, you just said that pretty much nothing happens without parental consent.
That's correct.
So if we were to vote on this without that being in there, in other words, what I'm saying is, if that's the case, I'd like to see that in here. If we're going to vote on it, you know what I'm saying?
Right. And we can ask them to put that statement in there, and we can push it back to their legal team. And Mr. Bradley, correct me if I'm wrong, I think even for medicine, they would have to have, as a health organization, they would have to have, if they work independently, they would still have to have that consent. I think with ours, we're kind of taking an extra step where the parent can actually be, even if that service is provided in a room where it's telehealth, the parent can come on site here or do that. But we can ask them to specify and clarify that in there as well, so that it's clear that there's no ambiguity in that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, we want to get these things, and would like Mr. Brad to have an opportunity to look over any modifications or changes that may come back as well. And once we would do that, we could actually get that to you in advance of the meeting, for February. And I will go ahead and make contact with them tomorrow to see if they have representative who are physically present or virtual at our February 11th meeting. Yes, February 12th.
I'd actually, will every school get the same thing?
Yes, sir. They will provide this to be for all schools. They would have, part of the grant would provide on the mental health side. The psychiatrist will be telehealth. It will be one dedicated for those that might need medication management on that side. They would have access to that. And then there would be 3 therapists that would be in Bladen County full time as a part of this grant. So they would just work here in the county. Even if there were some things in the county outside the system where they might need support, I think they could be available to the community as well outside of this. But yes, sir, they would be available to all of our schools.
Okay. Are there any other agencies helping us with this responsibility?
Not to this degree. We have, and Ms. Whitesmith can probably speak this a little bit. We have Coastal Horizons, who is in 2 of our buildings in a day treatment program now. We've had a couple others that have kind of reached out, but I think the biggest challenge, and even I think UNC has gotten the same challenge to a degree too, is recruiting folks to work in this area. And a lot of folks may end up going to the hospital setting, or might go into an urban area and work versus, in a rural setting. So a lot of folks have had, now they've got 3 interviews they shared this morning. They have 3 interviews scheduled this week, actually. Interviews for positions that would go along with this. And they actually were trying to target folks that were in our area. That's what they wanted to try to hire, was folks in our area familiar with the community that could serve in these roles. They did confirm that one of the ones they were interviewing is a Bladen County resident. So that's one thing they tried to target, is to obviously not only provide the services, but to try to do it with folks that are familiar with the area in our region and things that take place in our area. So that's been the biggest challenge for a lot of mental health organizations, I think, just across the board, is the recruitment. Like, for example, with school psychology, I think it was about a year or 2 ago, they put in the allotments for school psychology. Well, Bladen has 1 school psychologist now already on staff. Their entire workload is with psychological testing for the Exceptional Children's Program. They're not available to do anything else. Districts have, and they come back into the provision that you could even try to look at, for a while, they said you have to have someone in that position. But nobody, unless you were in, Wilmington, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Charlotte, Meck, a lot of districts struggle with finding folks with those skill sets, because even with the salary schedule that the state provides for school psychologists, they can go to a clinical setting and make a whole lot more money. So, when folks come out of school, or those are going through like internships and things, they're getting recruited by these big hospitals and things. And that's been a lot of the challenge for folks, even locally in our region, is, not only just getting folks, but, they might stay. I think one of the folks with Coastal Horizons was with them a month and got a much better offer. They were going in a month. And that's not, and especially in these kind of services, you want to build that trust with a provider on behalf of a parent and student, just as you want to have, like with us, for teachers and counselors and all. Those relationships are important because you build that trust. But it's hard to do that when you've got someone here today and they're gone tomorrow. Yeah. And that's one of the challenges. But the goal was to kind of bridge, and it's targeted, if this model is targeted toward rural school districts. That's what they want to try to work through. And like I said, we've had a lot of conversations, early on in the kind of grant development. We weren't sure we were going to be funded until I think it was like July, August timeframe when they finally let us know. So it's still going to take some time, because they've actually leaned upon the school system. If this is approved, they want us to help shape that. So what the referral, what does it look like from the school? Because what's it like from a school perspective? What does it look like for a parent? Because you want to make, we know that sometimes we have grandparents and other family members that children that are under the children under watch care of them might not be a parent. And we have some folks that are much older in the community that may not understand all of the. So even part of that would be, you know, to establish a medical record, being able to make sure that they understand what this means, not just throw a paper out and say, here, sign this and go on, but they truly understand what it is that's available to them. And I think that's important, that no one should be able to not understand what may be available to their child if they're coming in for referral. They truly understand what it is they're doing. And then, you know, the one thing about this process, many of you probably have healthcare providers and various, a lot of us are familiar with MyChart, which is, you know, a lot of the places are using now. You know, for anything that, you know, a parent with consent for service, their family physician would have access to that. Or if a family physician, the child goes to see a family physician and say, you know, I'm seeing this might be a concern, let me do a referral. They could refer through this and get an appointment much quicker than if you're trying to go out on your own. So that's kind of what some of the pluses are for what they're trying to do. Obviously, we want to make sure they understand where we stand as a system and what we want to do. And I think that's just want to make sure we got all those things ironed out before we enter agreement. Again, there's no financial binding on this. That's one thing we want to kind of go back into is if the board had concerns, if we started the program, we saw some concerns, make sure that we've got a clear exit, that there are no issues with that. So we want to work through some of that language as well.
Two other questions. One being, and I hope there's none, hopefully, it's a smooth transition or process, but if a parent has an issue, what's gonna be the protocol for that? Are they gonna still come to us? Or do they discuss it directly with UNC and UNC handles it? Because in here it states that they have full power. So, I mean, if the parent, we have an obligation to the parent.
Right.
And the kid, so if there's an issue, whatever it may be, hopefully none.
Right.
Do they address that directly with UNC and UNC deals with it? But I'm sure we would have to still play a part in that because
part of the consent that we talked about this as well is that you know, obviously they had to, you know, parental consent, but to view maybe part of the student record for anything about it. But it also gives us that same thing. So the goal is the referrals are gonna filter through us and then us to them. So everything will come through.
we kind of like screening it.
Right.
You got somebody
And try
doing
to
that.
prioritize that. So if there's a need, we work with that provider, say, okay, based on this from the medical perspective, you know, you say it's the highest need. Well, school may say, well, this parent's been to us 3 times. This child is really struggling. We want to prioritize this student. So we would have that flexibility to make those requests and to make that happen. So I don't think it would not come to us would be if the family physician directly referred to UNC, which they can do that now even without this. And again, they would have to have the parent on that at that particular clinic, but anything through the school has to go through us first.
And that is the same for the teacher. The teacher sees an issue.
Correct.
She would address the district and go from there.
Yes, sir. Everything would go through us first.
And the last thing is travel, which is the reason why I asked, is every school gonna get the same thing? Because are we looking at incurring any travel costs if students got to be transferred to or shipped to another school, anything like that?
No, sir. The grant will cover anything that's specific to this. Now, for the providers, obviously they will be scheduled based on caseload. So there might be one school for a morning this particular week.
Because I foresee if a specialist is going to be, let's say at West Blaine High School, and we got one east that needs to see the same specialist, is he going to leave and go there, or we got a person set there to do that same thing?
The providers will travel, and it will limit. In fact, they're also going to offer if there's anything. If say with a family, the parent may say, "Well, I want to be there, and I don't want to telehealth. I want to do it in person, and I can be there at 4:30." They will make those accommodations to do even after school hours. So it's going to be guided by the needs of the family. So if if there's a situation where a student needs to be seen, say at East Blaine, like you mentioned, from whence that provider would travel there, it would make sure that student would be seen. So, and that's why they wanted to have the 3 therapists, because the medication management will be telehealth. So there's no travel issue in that. So the schedule plus 3 therapists would be on a rotation basis, obviously prioritizing the highest needs. So they would take those referrals. So say week 1, we've got 10 referrals. The next week they'd be prioritized. So we know we've got to go to these 2 at school A this morning, and we're going to go. So they will all that will be mapped out, but we will have the say in prioritizing those. And like I said, I think it makes it easier. Because sometimes, for families, some stuff can be overwhelming, especially at the medical clinic. They're throwing 15,000 papers at you to go through. You're still gonna have those consent, but it starts with the school-based referral first.
Mhm.
So they wouldn't do any of that until a referral was done through the school. Could be parent asking for that, could be a staff member saying, in my class, I see this, go to guys, have that conversation with the parent, this is the services available. So they wouldn't start any of that until we went through our individual referral process first.
And last question, have they come up with any kind of like workshop or some kind of thing where they can come to the, get this thing a kickoff with the parents,
Yes, sir. They want
They got
to get
some-
everything, all the legalities and everything handled, then they would do information sessions and things for families in the various communities.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I got another question. So if the district refers somebody to these people here, and a school, child's being seen, do we have somebody in Bladen County Schools that can be a check on them as far as making sure nothing gets done without parental consent?
Yeah, they would not, and in fact, part of that process that you would have to have the consent before UNC was ever engaged at all.
Well, what I'm saying is, okay, they might have consent to do A, but while they're in that room with that child, what's to stop, you know what I'm saying? What's the check to make sure B don't happen? In this world we live these days,
Right.
you can't never be sure. There's just so much gray,
Yeah, the parent would have to consent to anyone outside of themselves, student and provider to be in there, just like you would have in the clinic. I mean, that's not, we couldn't. Now, I know that they've asked our nursing staff to do some vital signs and things as if it's one of those appointments where it's for the medical provider. And the nurse Lanier, and we've discussed that, how that would work. And we have other folks that are trying to do some of those kind of things, basic blood pressure, temperature. Again, you gotta have consent for even do that now, because we know that's even in the parent bill of rights. So our checks and balances is we don't send a single thing over to them until we know that this has been consented to, everything is taken care of. Then they're contacted by UNC to do all the MyChart sign up. It might be where the student already has on MyChart with their local provider, just connects that, or it establishes them one if they don't have that. Plus, we would get all the information about family medicine doctor, all that. So all that stuff is there. Just like, whenever we go to a specialist, our family doctor gets all those notes and everything. So, the goal is for, you want it to be transparent care, but obviously totally out the gate with parents' full consent. And then obviously, just like you would in the clinical setting, the parents' right to terminate that consent at any time, at any moment in the process. We will make sure that that's also there too. So I think whenever we ask them about specifying, even though it's implied, but specifying consent, that we put in there that statement, a parent reserves the right to withdraw consent at any time in the process, so that it's clarified in black and white.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. I'll have to take it.
One last question,
Yes, sir.
about asking, subsection 4.3 and 4.4. Would you elaborate on that a little bit? Just to make sure we have some clarity on that, because it's, 12 months into it, it doesn't seem to be working for them, and, we got the parents wide open.
Right.
They just, and based on this, either party can withdraw.
Yeah.
That's correct. And so we know with the grant, we know it's time limited 3 years. I think the goal of whether it's UNC Health or any other provider on the road is to establish a process, or it's like a pilot that would be in place. Obviously, you won't sustain. That's the thing that's happened in our state. A lot of times you'll start teachers or somebody get introduced to a program, you'll have it for a year and then they take it away. But the commitment on behalf of this is a 3-year commitment on the financial side. So the financial wouldn't be a consideration, but this provides the board, if we feel like things are not working well, or we have concerns, our right to exit the agreement without any any issues.
And them too.
Right, and them too. So now they would have to, on their end, because they're the grantee, they would have quite a big issue with the financial part on that, because, I mean, it's pretty, I don't remember the exact number offhand, but it was a pretty significant amount of money that was invested from Duke Endowment to pilot the program. So, you know, they would have to, that would be on their end.
And that's the reason why I was asking the question before, do we have anybody else that we have been talking to? Because, well, I know of one agency, I don't know what happened with it. I'm sure you know what I'm talking
Right.
about. And I think we tried them before and there was some issues, didn't work out, and it's probably some of the same issues, but as it states here, you know, that 12 months, you know, kind of looking at that 12 months, so then after that first 12 months, and we roll into the next 12 months, and then we roll into the last 12 months for that 3-year time period. But if we don't have anybody, and hopefully we won't need anybody because we need these services bad.
Right.
It says we cannot enter into another agreement with anybody else unless we do it, if I'm reading it correctly, along the same terms. Is that right, Mr. Grady?
That's correct.
So we had to go within, we have to ask them to agree to do it within the same terms that we were already acting upon.
Right, and we actually sent that to them, and they gave us some, let's see what they're.
I pointed that issue out,
And we don't know that they're gonna do that.
Right,
but, you
It's
know,
kind of like putting them in a bubble.
right,
I think the thought process from their side of the coin is that, you know, they're going to some expense and some money in entering into the contract, and they probably don't want us to go find somebody cheaper.
Right, there you go. That's the point I'm going to. Right, yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of, because we're not funding anything on our end finance, they're not gaining anything from us.
And you know, if you go to something cheaper, then that means them kids ain't getting the same thing.
Right,
Less money, less support.
right, so, I mean, we know from the financial perspective,
So then we done told the parents, we're gonna offer them all this stuff. And then they dive on us.
right,
So
and that's one thing, there's no, on behalf.
that's why I was saying, they're gonna, you know,
Right, there's no.
we gotta stay in the loop.
Right, there's no financial interest on we're not putting we don't have any financial resources that are going into this. All right, and except for the in-kind access to the internet in the building and a space where they can do telehealth. They're doing the equipment and everything, so.
That's good.
Right, so the thing is with them, the financial bearing would be on their end versus ours. But one thing that, you know, like I said, they gave us a response, that would be one thing we want to have them kind of clarify on that particular statement too, is that, to give us that opportunity if we decide to pool, that we have flexibility to go on our own. Now, right now, unfortunately, we don't have access to this magnitude to have dedicated folks, just 3 dedicated folks just to the district for that. Now, there's talk, and I'll share this with you all, there's talk that, and there's just a lot that states.
This is deep.
It is.
It is really deep.
It is.
Especially 4.4, when it's
Right.
talks about the breach.
Right. And the thing that's challenging is that North Carolina knows there is a widespread issue, specifically in rural communities, for access to all types of healthcare, not just talking on this end, but all types of healthcare. And we've seen things for a long time that says, oh, we're trying to do rural access. But many of us can still testify in personally. It's still hard for us to get to some providers. I mean, I had one, I had to wait 3 months myself to, you know, and it's a larger problem statewide and probably even national for rural areas. You know, is that recruitment and getting folks in. You know, our options are fairly limited in this particular arena. But I think I agree. I think some things just want to get, that was why I felt more comfortable talking some tonight, and let's get some things hashed out. Maybe get one of their staff members that can address any other questions that the board may have before we do a final vote on this, because I agree there's a lot of things that are here, and we just want to make sure we're doing our due diligence as a system and as a board, obviously, to look at all options, and also make sure that any guest, any contractor, anyone that's coming in our system to provide anything, not just this, anything that they're understand the system's expectations and our requirements as a system. So what are our policies and procedures?
You would think the state, if they recognize what's going on, that they would be an advocate for us, to support us instead of you know, obviously the grant's a good thing. We don't have to pay for it, but if the state recognizes that this is an issue, and why hasn't the state stepped in and said, hey, this is what we're gonna do to provide, you know, rural, if it's rural or if it's inner city or wherever, why wouldn't they provide that for us instead of, you know, obviously there's some good things about it, but there's some opportunities about it as well. So you would think the state would be due diligent and try to take care of what needs to be taken care of.
Right, a lot of our challenges, and Ms. Harrison can speak to this, and related is, you know, a lot of times they'll advertise, oh, we're gonna put X number of $1 million into this area. Just like.
No, you said it.
Right. Well,
Just said it.
just like whenever, what was it, Ms. Harrison, about 3-4 years ago, they pulled out a budget line that was supposed to target kindergarten through 8th grade enhancement teachers, music, art, band, theater arts, all that. Well, you would think that if we're gonna set aside funding to do that, then, you know, that would be a good thing. Well, all the state did in that case, and what they are synonymous for doing, and I'll share another example that's kind of related to this as well. They took money from the regular teacher allotment to create that fund, so you shift it from one place to the other, create a negative in the other to make that one happen. It wasn't new money. It wasn't where they shifted something else into other state budgets. So they did that just this year. Layton County Schools is a low wealth district. And we receive low wealth and at-risk funds. In fact, we would be in a very severe deficit if all we had to run on was just the classroom 01 allotments that they give us. The minuscule amount they give us for school administration, school counseling, social workers, if we did not have those additional, and even that's still not enough. Well, they've taken money out of, I think it's at risk, is that right, Ms. Harrison? PRC 69. They took money away. So our PRC 69, if I remember, is about 170,000 less this year than it would have been from last year with an increase in enrollment. I understand that. But they've taken that away to create a state grant that folks have to apply to. And that is open to nonprofits, everything that can get those funds. So rather than the money that was supposed to be targeted for at-risk youth to provide those additional services, we've lost that amount to go into this grant. Now, they said we only took $7 million from the state. Well, I was in a room with regional superintendents, just our region, Layton, Columbus, Cumberland, Moore, just our 10, 11 districts in our area. We generated over 3 or 4 million just our region, so that can't be right if you said 7 million across the state. And so we still haven't got a clear explanation why that was taken, but I say this, Mr. Singletary, just to kind of piggyback. They do this a lot. They tell you we're going to establish this, but they take it from somewhere else. Just like, you know, we can remember years ago when we were all in elementary school, every K-3 classroom had a teacher assistant. They have taken that, they've nibbled at that fund and nibbled at that fund and nibbled at that fund. Now we have enough to do every kindergarten and one for first grade shared. And I mean, I can remember all in my elementary career how important the teacher assistant was in my classroom with my teacher. I mean, you had that same respect and regard. They were working with you just like your teacher was. And I think we all turned out pretty good. But now we're sitting here in the 21st century. That's another example of where they've taken money away and taken money away and taken money away. I mean, we're putting money in places that are sometimes interested. It will surprise you sometimes what these budget bills have and what they're putting money toward. But public schools have been hit and hit and hit over and over again. And they say, I got to find this, it comes from us. And, you know, just like it's even misleading information. Teacher salaries, we're always going to be X%, ends up being an average. We don't apply it to the whole scale. So, I mean, it's just an example of this. And just like this, you know, they talk about we need more mental health services and all in schools. But you're not putting that money designated for that purpose as it should be, or you're tying our hands. If we don't have someone we can hire, that you want us to contract. No, you can't do that. You gotta have an actual person that is your employee. Then whenever they want to provide a literacy specialist for the state early literacy, we ask, well, give us the money as districts so we can interview. Hopefully one of our own would work. No, they hired their own. That's been tough for districts too. They've had issues with that. So that's just kind of related to this is that, it's a bigger picture. But there's a lot of work states going to do financially to sustain even beyond just a program like this, or how could this happen in every school district in North Carolina? You shouldn't be, it doesn't matter whether you're rural or urban, you should have the same access to the same things. That's been a battle we have been fighting. That's the whole premise of Leandro, that students in rural, North Carolina, are disserviced by lack of equity of services. And we're still, after 20 years, we're still fighting that battle, So it's definitely an area of concern. I think if we can iron out some of these things and we all have surety on a lot, I think it'll be good. We've got to have that surety and security to know that the interest of the board, the interest of the community, that we're looking out for every student and family, and that this program would do that and would hold to the standards that we would expect with the consents and all that.
Now, will you give us a little bit of information on the insurance portion of it?
On the insurance?
Because it states here that they're gonna have $1 million per occurrence. And then $3 million.
That's $1 million per claim.
Per claim.
Right.
Well, that's what I mean by occurrence. Each claim.
$3 million per occurrence.
Yeah, $3 million per occurrence. And we gotta have the same thing.
Yeah,
But who's filed first?
Well, it would be on,
And what's it gonna cost us?
right. Well, we maintain general liability already. We actually require that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so we have that already. That's something we have for anything that may take place.
Right.
Any negligence that would be, and Mr. Grady can, any negligence that would be on their side would be their responsibility, because if they're the provider, we're just providing the space. So I mean, if someone was to fall coming in our school, obviously, but as it relates to the clinical part, that would be on their side. The district would be responsible for.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that the students are not patients of the school.
Right.
They're patients of UNC, and any professional liability, such as if they went beyond the consent, is the responsibility of UNC and not the school. So if they are sued for medical negligence, or then their insurance is going to kick in.
Be sure better be sure about that. Because they got more.
Yeah. They do. I think they bought several systems in the state.
I appreciate clarification, but I'd still, me
Yeah,
personally, I'd still like
it's a
one
lot
of
of
the people
that,
to
man.
come and talk.
Right. I will reach out to them tomorrow to see if we can get that arranged. And even if we can't get someone here, at least they can join us virtually. That can pick back.
You got down all those, Jason?
Yes, sir. I've got it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I have forwarded you, Mr. Locklear, and I'll forward it to Jason, and forward to all the board members, just an article from the School of Government that deals with that parental consent issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Atkinson, for that information, and we will move on to item number 10, our action items, and if you would enlighten us someone or 10.01 or field house and our building number starting.
All right, thank you, Chairman Bowman. You have, I got this afternoon, it's in board, I got in board document, you hand out, so I'm not sure if you all would get on the time to see that, but this is, Mr. Burris has looked at, obviously been several options kind of floating around as it relates to the target construction. I think one of the main concerns at one point was with the septic system and the additional cost it would take to do any additional restrooms and that kind of thing. And we know there was some projection, I think, in excess of 85,000 just to do a septic upgrade. And what is in this particular proposal, and it's kind of coming in estimate, if you look at 250 per square foot, it should be around 250,000. What this would be is to remodel the existing concession stand, that would be updating the fixtures, that kind of thing. New roof, bringing everything up, that would need to be in that facility. And then behind, if you got your paper, you're looking at the orange area that's here, to the left, that is where the concession stand area is at this point. And then you see that the additional storage is built behind with roll doors on both ends. And obviously a wall in the center, one side being field equipment storage, the other being sports storage. It would have ventilation so that jerseys and things could be in that particular area. And then what he shared with me today is that you would have a roof line, because the roof has got to be replaced on the other. The roof would actually be, you see that, I wouldn't say it's side extended a roof, I guess what you would call that. That would go across both and would create an opening covered shelter. So if they were outside and there was to be lightning or something, they could be under a shelter if players had to be taken under a shelter area. Plus you have the storage area as well.
Where is that at?
That's kind of in the middle between between this one here is on the left here is the existing building. The green is the new construction. You see it's obviously wider. So this roof line would create a shelter under between the two so that you could get in here. There's going to be a service door. This is the way we have a service door on both sides. And then you'd have a roll door. So you have a wide, so you can bring in large equipment, that kind of thing on the end. And I kind of asked where we were. I know we've got to be mindful that because this is under needs-based public school fund, we cannot, for that budget to pay for this, it's got to be done under the current contract with Bordeaux. Of course, they could sub that out under there because we cannot award another contractor separate without having to take another funding source, so to keep it under the construction budget. Now, of course, for me, I'm like, I'll be honest, I'm like, well, we got this today. We haven't had a lot of time to ask any questions. I kind of asked, the construction with demolition, we're going to be in place through probably middle to end of April with everything turnkey. So, I mean, that's not to say this would not. I mean, obviously you're going to have outside sports starting. If this particular one is the one that the board decided to do, we want to go ahead and move forward with this. This could be done behind and not stop anything being done except for, I would say the remodeling part would be a second phase because they're using restrooms. You don't want to do anything with that until they're done. So, I mean, obviously I think that it's definitely some things to consider. Me personally, as your person that looks out for the interests of our system and for you all, I think this is good tonight for information. I wish I'd have had it a little bit sooner for you all. Like I said, I got it probably an hour or so, hour and a half, 2 hours before the board meeting. So I didn't, I feel like we either two options, and this is what I would recommend. Either we take action, I would table and take action next month. I think we need to have, I know there's one question is we want to make sure that for permitting and everything, and I would, I'm not the subject matter expert in this. So, I mean, I don't want you to base a decision off what I'm telling you. We need someone, but I mean, I felt it was my due diligence to kind of give you an overview of where we are. I would feel more comfortable if we did one or two things. And as your representative, I would recommend this. One, that is tabled, for, to get additional information, make sure all permitting, all can be done for action in February, or that it's tabled and a special call meeting is called for the purpose of determining which direction you want to go. I know I think a lot of it too was with the holidays. We had our meeting was the Monday before we went home for Christmas and New Year's. So there wasn't a lot of time in there. I think the additional time we want it to be done right. And obviously it's the board's pleasure of either this route or the other couple of options that I mentioned. I mean, I do think we're going to need a decision in February at the latest. Because we need to have it done so that, because we cannot get stuck. Well, it's happening, but it's better because the money's in that construction budget. It needs to be done under this umbrella while we've got the general contractor at our disposal for this work. So, I mean, I would just lend to what the board's pleasure would be to table it to February or and the thing I'm cautious about from special call meeting, if I knew I would have everything you all would need, or he could provide everything y'all would need in a week or two, I said, well, but I can't guarantee that. I mean, because it's just kind of getting back into the first full week. And I think what needs to happen at this point, this is just from my perspective, you've got this now, what you haven't seen this drawn out, is that you see all the options that have been shared side by side, and then make an informed decision and have the subject matter expert here to say, okay, this is what this will cost, this cost projected, and then let you all make that decision. I feel more.
So it's not too late, because when he was here, he did mention that we needed a decision in January.
Yeah, well.
Well, I mean, you gotta look at this here. We just got this 2 hours ago, so
Yeah.
I mean, I need a detailed takeoff, because I wanna see what each step, I wanna see what the material looks like on the
I
axles.
understand that.
I mean, we can't move on something like this tonight without, we want to do what's right, but right now you're just looking through a window and there's nothing to see, you know what I mean? So.
That's why I feel more comfortable that it either goes those two. And I mean, you know, if you all in February decide, you know, plan A, B, C, whatever one we go with, and we lock that in based on, and plus it also gives you a good idea. We'll know even cleaner budget then, because we'll have everything except the demo parking area should have been accounted for and paid. And so that gives us a bit, you know, we can ask Mr. Burson, when he comes, to give us a financial statement, maybe end of January, that shows all that, so we know what we're working with. And then I think it's important for you all to see everything side by side. So, you know, there's been 2 or 3 different options that's been talked about over the last 2 or 3 months. I think it's important for y'all to see it together, right? And then you can ask questions and then make an informed decision. And again, education is my specialty, and music and technology, all that kind of stuff. Construction is not. I mean, if I could advise you, I would. But I believe, as your representative, it's better to have everything together, have him here.
It just seems kind of vague though.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we need more
Very vague.
specifics. Just like we want to make sure, you know, are we going to have, and in this, as far as measurements, when you think about the current septic system, does this encroach upon the current septic?
Right.
Does it need to be shifted? Does it need to be turned? I mean, so that's something we need to make sure that's been taken care of.
We need to get those guys out there to verify where that's at before we do anything, and then we can.
I mean,
Give us a detailed list of what we're looking at from a material standpoint.
Right.
It's got to be under this needs based, or we can't, because if we don't, we got to go somewhere else.
We would have to fund it out of a different funding, which would be capital outlay, and that would be from county. Yeah.
Because they were pushing, doing a whole new septic system.
Yeah, we're not.
But I mean,
See,
that's not gonna work.
From Adam was, as long as we don't gain fixtures.
Right.
Keep what we got, then we don't have to do anything from that standpoint.
I mean,
that was the premise behind this, is not at you would remodel, fix nothing additional, but
update.
But there again, this is, like I said, this is still kind of very open ended. So, I mean, you know, and, you know, I
then
think
it was the question as to what was the condition of the current system as well.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
That was another question.
Right.
What was the condition of the current system? I mean, we keep the current system, go ahead and build this, and then we end up with a big issue.
Right.
We got water standing on the ground.
Right. So
that's gonna be a problem.
Right.
Then we're gonna end up having to redo it anyway.
Mm-hmm. And see, we need to get those folks from the county out to check the integrity of that system. You know, so that's why I recommend that
because based on what you're gonna be utilizing will determine how long your lines are gonna be.
Right.
Yeah. And I haven't seen the septic plan, so I don't know how long the lines are.
Right. And I'm sure it's been there for quite a while, because that current, so I mean, that would be something we want to definitely, I think that was at least.
Play baseball.
So, I mean, again, we had on, because we were hoping to have action, but.
And then you still gotta have a reserve. You gotta have a reserve too.
So, I mean, it's my recommendation that, it's tabled to get all this information together, and that we could bring it back with everything side by side, clear budget, so that you all can make an informed decision.
Motion to that effect.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can table this.
Motion. Any more discussion?
Need to make sure that, we're within that timeline, because it was said that it was very crucial that we approved it at this meeting.
Right. So what I can do, if it start with you all as a part of this, that we can plan for February unless he says, gotta move it forward. I say, well, I need everything, and we call a special call meeting. So y'all open for a special meeting if we need to have that. If not, we'll plan to do February. I'll find out, him, of course, we need to get our local county folks to check that system too.
Yes.
I mean, cause he can't give us something vague like that and then put us on the ball.
Right.
We need to have, a lot more detail.
And all options side by side.
That's right.
And the cost.
And yes,
Okay, all those in favor of, the motion to table? You know, by saying aye. Opposed, likewise. None, motion carries. Down to action item 10.03, our state school boards conference. Dr. Atkinson can
yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
update us on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman, Benton, board members. We had sent out an email for the COSBA conference. This is what used to be, it's a different group, but our North Carolina School Board Association is a part of this now, formerly of the National School Board Association. So we're no longer affiliated with them as the state. But we did put the information out. We have had 2 board members to express interest in attending the conference. Arrival will be on February 21st and 26th. Board policy 2130 does require that the board take action for any out-of-state traveling for board members. Mr. Locklear and Mr. Davis have expressed interest in attending. The estimated total cost, this is everything, registration, hotel, airfare, all the whole 9 yards, per member is $3,273.70. So I know what the pleasure of the board is, unless there's others that would interested in attending. So we do have Mr. Davis, Mr. Locklear, who have expressed interest in attending. So we need the board to take action on approval of their registration and to incur expenses for the conference.
Is this something that could be attended virtually?
This one does not have a virtual option, no, sir. Some do, and some, we've, for a while, especially pandemic, even after, even the School Board Association locally had some things, but there was, as of right now, that's something we can send to them for commentary. Could we have virtual options for board members? You would still have a registration cost, but you'd be able to access it. And one thing that was nice about some of the virtual options, you could access even sessions after the fact. So if you wanted to go back and review something, or it could be shared with all board members. So I know that Mr. Davis and Mr. Locklear can share by the sessions they attended when they returned. But right now, there's unless I've missed something, I don't see a virtual option for this one. I will check and find out and let you all know if there is that. But we just need the board to take action on approval for those registrations tonight.
I'll entertain a motion that pleases the board.
I make a motion to approve.
I say,
Probably seconded that we approve the conference. Any discussion? If there is no discussion, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Those likewise,
No.
aye, no. So we got 2 no's at least. I was a no.
I was a no.
No. Any other no's? Nobody online, so. Okay, it's. However many
Hands is 2 no's. I'm sorry. 5-2. And we will get those taken care of tomorrow morning.
Dr. Atkinson.
This time I entertain a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel as per TGS 143.3 to consult with our attorney if needed. as per NCGS 143.3, and to discuss student reassignment and student discipline as per the 1974 Family Rights and Privacy.
So move.
Moved, properly seconded. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Why is that?
Defense over there for now.
Games all got played on.
Yep.
Need a motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
Okay, been moved and properly seconded, we come out of executive session. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise, is none, motion carries. We are now back in open session. And Dr. Atkinson.
Chairman Benton and board members, I am requesting the board to approve the personnel action items as amended.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And then moving and properly seconded, that we approve the action item as amended. Is there any discussion? There's none. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, aye. There's none, motion carries. And was number 13 then, matters of interest to board members. Have you got anything?
I mean, I got a few, I think Tim, he's been here, the rest of us, I mean, everybody's seen all the kind of the bicker and arguing and stuff like that we went on. Trying to get this new school built and such and whatnot. It was well worth all that arguing at times. See them children this morning. Very happy kids. Everybody, you know, they deserve it. I was kind of touched my heart. Another thing, I mean, we kind of stalled out here, like on the trip. With the cost and some of this stuff in the district and the trips, used to with Dr. Taylor here prior to Mr. Atkinson, we would kind of rotate these trips with board members and, you know, it kind of kept from, some of them, I think you will have 7 or 8. Do you recall that, Dr. Atkinson?
Yeah, I know for like the, with some of the ones local and state, you know, it's kind of, you know, the state conference is usually, you know, the vast majority will go to that, you know.
Well, it was like the out of state is what
Right,
I'm
yeah.
speaking on, and
And I think it's been, probably 2 or 3, I know used to, that school board, National School Association had one in the fall and one in the spring, and then I think they had a law conference. Right.
I mean, I just didn't know if we had a policy in place or if that would be something that the board would entertain. Maybe putting a policy in to rotate it out that way, you know, each board member during their time would be able to go, you know, experience.
And Mr. Grady, if I could, ask you on, you know, in the policy that, that we have now, that is 2130 board member compensation expenses. This is the one that with, you know, the board chair can approve, anything in state. And then of course, the board chair goes, vice chair would approve that. And then we had the out of state. I don't see a reason, Mr. Grady, if that's something that the board would be interested in doing that, we could just add that in with this particular policy, since it talks about board member development, or might be a separate policy.
I don't read it first.
Yeah. So we can pull, sure, we can pull this one. I think there's one on board member development, Mr. Grady to look at, and we could bring a recommendation back to you if that's something that work out the rotation, because we know every board member's got to get a certain amount of units of credit for renewal, and you've got to have the ethics every 2 years. And so that's something we can do, could draft and bring back to you all for review, and try to work out where for a policy where it's not necessarily name specific, it might be based on district and countywide and how that rotates. We can fix out a schedule on that, make that part of it, let you all look at it for review. We can do that.
And you're gonna be sure to update the new profiles
Yes, sir.
with numbers and all that. Greatly appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, Tim.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Vince. We appreciate it. Anybody else, Have anything? Any other board members? Number 14, Chair. I'll yield the rest of my time to the superintendent. How's that?
Thank you, Chairman. I have a lot to report tonight, because obviously we are, our last board meeting was the week that we got out for Christmas and New Year's holiday. And I hope everyone did have an enjoyable, holiday break. We were, everyone I think was appreciative of the time with family and friends, and a lot of excitement with folks coming back, last week too. You could just tell everybody was seemed to be refreshed and ready to tackle the new semester. Just want to quick few things. I did attend the state board meeting last month. We're rotating that. I shared that a little bit earlier. But in looking at the most current set of requirements for Parents' Bill of Rights, Bladen County has satisfied everything that legislation calls for at this point, except for one thing, and that's the start of next school year. So we're waiting now. They're sending out the template. And I think this is going to be simple for us to do because we started a new parent-student handbook this year with everything in one place. So a lot of things that the legislation asked for that what's called Parents Guide to Student Achievement, we already do. So I mean, just a few other pieces we'll have to add to it. So that's promising that won't be a lot of work for us on that. One thing I'll point out is I've shared with you all about the two different types of parental concerns and the hearings that could be a part of that. One of those, obviously, stops with you all as local board. One I'll share with you all about parental remedies for concerns, the one that entertains the state board. I found out they approved the policy, or they approved the temporary rules until they get policy. And this is interesting that if a hearing goes past you all for parental, now we're planning to handle as much of it. I mean, it can always be challenged on anything. But if a hearing goes past you all on parental remedies for concerns, state board has adopted a procedure to use a hearing officer. They said that I think the rate's $200 per hour for them, for a hearing officer to hear that on behalf of the state board. What they did share in that is that the cost of that hearing officer will be paid by us. So if anyone goes to that level, we have to pay the bill for the hearing officer to be used for an appellate hearing for the state board. I don't quite understand that. If it's the state board here having the hearing, DPI should be paying that, but the rule says that if anyone gets that level, we have to pay the cost. That's just where that is on that. There also, and this is something, another part of that was at this meeting, and there's several things they approved. We're going to be meeting with principals briefly, have a quick meeting on Friday to talk about some things. There's been some changes with licensure requirements as it relates to continuing ed for teachers. They've reduced some and changed some around. But the one thing that's kind of pressing, has been a hot topic, is the pathway for students to graduate high school in 3 years. So this is an accelerated pathway. And we have to make that available, of course. They adopted some temporary rules. There's still some work we're going to have to do with DPI, but we have to lay out a pathway. They're going to suggest one for the courses that students have to take to graduate in 3 years versus 4. Now, obviously, there's some question concern about enrollment, ADM. There's concern on this community college side as well as school system side. But for that to even take place, the process in a nutshell will require that they meet with the principal to talk about the ramifications of graduate early. You would not have access to child nutrition services. You would not have access to high school counseling services. You would not be able to play sports. You can graduate early or do 3-year pathway. So educating families on, individually in a counseling session. Then the principal would discuss that with them. Requires a parental consent for a child to get it on a 3-year pathway as well. And then that would have to come to me. I would have to approve any students that would graduate in 3 years. Again, that would be, they have a transcript checklist. So for our scheduling, which is already challenging, and we have some challenges there, we have to add in to make sure that if someone's on a 3-year pathway, that those courses are available at those times, either through us or BPS. So it's add one more caveat, but that's the first group that will be eligible is actually this year's 10th graders. That hits home because I've got a 10th grader. And I will tell you, she's not graduating in 3 years. And you got to think about this too, for you know, for me, I'll speak personally about that. I want my child to experience the 4 years of high school. We grow them up too fast already. So I want her to have that opportunity to experience. That's why, you know, we have programs like BCC. I'm not gonna force my child to do that, but if she wants to take advantage. But see, this will be one thing too for a child that goes on a 3-year pathway. See, now they get free tuition, free fees, and through this year, through ESSER, we've been covering textbook costs. So that goes away after this year unless the county decides to pay it. That's something Dr. Lee and I have talked about, petitioning the county commissioners, because a lot of counties do different things with their community colleges to promote not just public school students, but even adults to go back to school. So that's something we're gonna pitch to them to maybe help with books and materials fees for any students that any residents of Bladen County would like to attend. So in going this pathway, they forfeit that right and access. So they might can get a couple of courses in that 3rd year, but they would not be able to obtain that associate's degree at no tuition cost. So those are things the law requires that we educate now. So we'll have, you know, we're kind of navigating, waiting for some more guidance from them, but we'll want to make sure that's in our high school handbook, because again, we've got a group of students that they will be eligible. And then we have to educate incoming freshmen as well, because ideally, if someone's going to declare that, they need to do it their freshman year, because you want to make sure they get the course progression that they're going to need. It's pretty intense. You're taking 2 and 3 of some content areas at a time. Like typically a student may take English 1, 9th grade year, English 2, 10th grade year. You're getting English 1 and 2 in the first year. Some folks are kind of doing that now, even with BCC track, but then they're able to not take like English 4 and get the English credit at BCC. So you're kind of working, but that's on the horizon, and we'll have more information on that. One other thing we did receive from Greg Elkins, who's the planning director and zoning officer for the county of Bladen. He says, "Dear property owner," which is us, there is a property owned by Manley and Carol Brisson. It's located at 1290 NC Highway 410. That's at the intersection of 41 and 410. So that's near West Bladen. What they're asking for is for the make this a commercial property for the purpose of I'm gonna give you the exact terms they use. This language is, I think it says for retail, so it could be like a gas station, restaurant, something, but to zone that for. So if anybody has any comments, they're taking that. They'll have a public hearing on January 16th at the Powell Milton building. I can email this to you all as well, so you're aware. Anyone that might make comment, they will hear that. So that's was also shared. And finally, as you all received the email, we were the first district to make the call today. We try to do that. You know, you don't want to wait too long, but you also don't want to jump the gun. But my philosophy has always been you err on the side of safety and caution. When we know that buses cannot be on the road with winds above 35 miles an hour, to me, it was a no-brainer this morning. You get a weather advisory from multiple sources. So we made that call for tomorrow. We'll be on what's called asynchronous remote learning. That means they don't have to be live on the computer at the same time. So we're able to catch it early enough where they can send work home today, which that was a blessing. We don't always get that benefit. That also keeps us from having to do any makeup time. We are allowed at 5 days right now. I think that expires this year unless they renew it. This is day 2. We had one in early part of August we had to do. So usually this time of year, you're talking about snow and ice, but now we're talking about high winds, heavy rain. Now, we will be monitoring. We're going to ask transportation and check in with our law enforcement personnel and emergency service personnel to check roadways tomorrow evening. We are expecting 1 to 3 inches of rain. Ground's already wet. A couple of districts have already, that are flood prone. Robinson is one of them. They've already put in a 2-hour delay for Wednesday because they do have a lot of flooding issues in Robinson County. So we will kind of evaluate that. If we need to do any kind of delay or change with Wednesday, we'll let you all know. We always let you all know first before we release anything. But we will be checking on that just to make sure if we're comfortable with our no flooding issues that will prevent our buses or parents from traveling. We'll continue a regular schedule, but if not, we'll make any adjustments we need to. If we had to start with a delay and then call it later, sometimes you have water running across and it finally clears up once it gets on one side. We experienced that some in the county. It was actually over a weekend, so we're fortunate. Before Christmas, we had an incident where a lot of rain was done here. We had several sections of the county that had some flooding concerns, but Other than that, that's all I have for you all tonight. Again, we appreciate you all so much. And we celebrate all of you, not just this month, but always. But we appreciate it so much. Make sure you get your boxes from Miss Ellie Johnson on the way out.
One question for you. How did traffic and stuff for these?
Oh, yes, yes. It's worked much better. Obviously, there's a couple things we're still working through. Once it gets warm enough, you can actually pay. And we've had to have them come in and repack it, obviously as it settled some. But a lot of parents, even that day, I was out the first day. And even students were saying, thank you all for doing this. So we had to know where, basically, it's in essence, it stopped the use of that turn lane, which was one of the main causes, not being able to see past that. Now down the road, the engineer did mention, and it might be something we'll look at even at West Blade, potentially moving or adding an exit East Blade where those tennis courts are on the far side, so it really spreads out even further. And that will make the loop go straight out. That's, obviously that would be something we could look at maybe doing over the summer. Don't have a cost on that. That'll be a little more intrusive, but this is really, and this might be our fix on a permanent basis.
Is that East Blade?
East Blade. So right now you got some cones and things, so we still could make use of that. It didn't close the drive. We still got use. We did talk about maybe doing a more permanent solution, maybe with some kind of gate, once everything's finalized, so it could be open and closed. But one thing that school also did is they used using rope and chain, so it gives us control on the student or faculty lots to rip off either end, so we can, if traffic was to get back up, we could flip them around to come in the other side of that parking lot and go on down the drive. So we got a lot of options, but it seemed to work well. People have been very complimentary and appreciative. It wasn't a major expense, but I'm glad we got able to get taken care of during the Christmas parade. So when we came back, we only had about 10, 11 cars. I guess they didn't get the message or just wanted to, got that game show pressure, look, come in to try to turn, but we had folks that they quickly got back around. And had a couple tried to cut through the faculty lots. That's why we said, make sure you do the loop. But I think that definitely was a move in the right direction. And folks are very appreciative that we're able to get taken care of. But it did work very well. So that's a good point. I meant to mention that tonight. So
I do have one issue that not issue. One thing that I'd like to address the board on. I was contacted by a past student's parent, well, grandparent. You all remember Sayon Dent from West Bladen? Extremely talented athlete that got killed in a car accident. It was a loss. That family's still grieving. The grandmother, or should I say great grandmother, something, she's in there. She contacted me and asked if I would speak with you guys speak with the board about actually utilizing the E-Town Middle School for the event this year. Now, they utilized the recreation gym last year and had a good event, but of course, the issue was always the seating. This kid did a lot while he was here, and they've actually started a scholarship for him and all that good stuff, and they're trying to give back in his honor. They're asking that, and I know we have a policy on it, because we're concerned about the cost of, repairs needing and things of that sort. But and I'll get you all the information, Jason. But any other board member that needs it as well, don't mind sharing it. But she asked that we allow them to utilize the E-Town Middle Gym this year to do it. Of course, they'll make sure that everything is taken care of, and based on how she does business, I know that she means what she says. Her name is Miss Annie Walker. She's a retired Sergeant Major, and she's cut and dry. So, but they need the extra space. They do plan on giving back, and there'll be a lot of things that they're gonna do during that event, and it'll all be in the information I'm gonna provide you. But she did ask that we, allow them to use the facility. So I would ask that, we, look at that, and if we can, maybe finalize that tonight would be great. If not, I told her to give us some time, because I didn't know, how it was gonna go about. And, because I wanted all the information, and rightfully, everybody here needs to know everything about it. And then we can make an honest decision.
Well, and I think at one point, because I'm familiar that, they were looking at establishing a nonprofit.
It is a nonprofit.
And if they have that and they have those coverages, they might by default be eligible. Now, there is expense even on nonprofits, so we would have to look at that, or Mr. Grady, correct me if I'm wrong, if the board is interested in doing that or waiving anything, we'd have to vote to set aside policy. And then you all take action on approving that request, going outside, but I mean, that's an option.
I told her, I said, because obviously everybody doesn't have the information, so I want to share it with everybody. And I told her, give me all the specifics, share it with everybody. And then when, make a decision on, the board can make a decision on, I said, give me some time. I definitely didn't try to, tell her that it will be a decision made this board meeting. Because that wouldn't be fair to the board members.
Right. If she can go ahead and get the nonprofit status letter or whatever it is, and their insurance, certificate of insurance.
Got all that.
We got that, then we can look at, Ms. Brown, I have to look at the fee structure, then we could actually, we could bring it back either two ways. As a nonprofit, the board could vote to waive the fees for the event on that, or if we don't have everything to go that route, we can vote, you all can vote to set aside the policy and take it as a request to approve it with no fees. So we could do that in February. If we could get that, we could bring it for the board for next meeting.
Okay.
I have a shit. Oh, we have a motion that we adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Probably second, and all those in favor of that, thing, aye.